They say the crooked tree steals more than shadows. It drinks memory, one forgotten breath at a time. He first noticed it when walking home the tree, alone, bent as if listening. The air grew colder as he passed beneath. That night, he couldn't recall what he'd eaten for dinner, or even if he had eaten at all. He began writing every detail of his days, each sound, each thought, afraid something was slipping away. The next evening, a stranger greeted him by name, a face he swore he had never seen. He turned back to his notebook, but a new entry was written there, one he never remembered writing. His hands trembled over the words, though he swore he had never written them. Outside, the crooked tree creaked, as if confirming the truth in silence. He shut the book, but the words seemed to echo in his skull, whispered with every creak of the wood around him. Sleep came in fragments. He dreamed of faces he couldn't place, voices calling his name from behind the tree. At dawn, he returned to the notebook, only to find fresh pages written overnight in the same hand he denied. Heart pounding, he tore the pages free, crumpling them in desperation. Yet the sound of tearing echoed far too loud, like splitting wood in a silent forest. And still, when he looked down, the notebook lay whole again, its pages untouched, waiting for the next entry. His hands trembled as the untouched notebook seemed to breathe, its cover rising and falling like a chest. A whisper seeped from its spine, calling his name in a voice almost like his own. He heard faint scratching inside, like a quill dragging across parchment, though the pages remained blank. His breath hitched, every inhale sounding louder in the silence. A sudden gust of cold air swept past, and the forest seemed to lean closer, branches creaking like old bones. The whispers deepened, layering over each other in languages he could not understand. He snapped the notebook shut, but the sound echoed like a scream through the clearing. The ground beneath him shifted, soft soil collapsing into a shallow pit of roots. He stumbled free, but the notebook flared with a pale glow, casting ghostly light across the clearing. Etched words appeared on its cover. "The debt begins here." The words burned brighter, searing into his eyes until he had to look away. Yet when he blinked, the same phrase was etched across the trees, glowing like scars in the bark. He staggered backward, but the forest pressed closer, branches locking overhead, sealing the sky. Each carved word beat in time with his racing pulse. From the corner of his eye, he saw a figure thin, draped in shadows, standing beneath the forgetting tree. Its head tilted, as if listening. The whisper sharpened, now forming words. "Write." The notebook grew hot in his hands, its spine twitching as though alive. Against his will, the first page fluttered open, and the pen slid from his pocket, standing upright on its own. The shadows leaned closer, waiting. The pen dragged across the paper without his consent, carving letters in a trembling hand. It spelled a single word: remember. A chill swept through the clearing, as if the trees themselves inhaled his fear. Every sound faded, leaving only the scratch of the pen. The notebook trembled, its pages fluttering though no wind blew. Each word written sank into the paper like it was alive. His pulse hammered in his ears, yet somewhere inside, a voice not his own whispered, "One word will not be enough." He tried to tear the page, but the book pulsed warm against his skin, like flesh. The pen moved again, scratching out a second word. This time the word etched was not meant for him. It was a name. The name pulsed with a sickly light, and his stomach churned. It was someone he thought he had forgotten, someone from a memory that felt too heavy to bear. A sudden rustle made him spin, nothing but the fog-shrouded trees. Yet the feeling of being watched pressed down, heavier than the night itself. The notebook flipped its pages on its own, revealing sketches of faces, familiar yet distorted. One face was unmistakably his own. A whisper hissed directly into his ear. "Do you remember them?" He felt icy fingers brush his neck, though no one was there. He forced himself to whisper the name aloud, but the sound warped, echoing back distorted, layered with dozens of other voices. The ground beneath the tree seemed to pulse with each syllable. The whispers coalesced into a single sentence. "You can never forget them, but you must remember correctly, or the tree will." His hands shook as he opened the notebook again. The letters from before rearranged themselves, forming memories he had long buried, twisted, incomplete, and false. Each memory he read sent shivers down his spine. Faces from his childhood blurred into one another. He realized he could no longer trust his own recollections. The tree groaned, and the shadows beneath its roots began to writhe upward, seeking him. He felt the ground shift, urging him closer to the center. A faint whisper called his own name. Then another voice, soft and mocking, repeating it with every word he remembered incorrectly. Mist coalesced into hands that seemed to push him toward the tree. He remembered flashes, laughter in the woods, a lost friend, a promise he could not recall fully. The notebook pulsed with light, as though demanding completion. Correction. He whispered the names, one by one, struggling to align the fragments of memory. The tree's branches quivered, shadows recoiling slightly. Then deep silence fell, waiting. The shadows no longer waited at the edge of his vision. They now stretched across the floor, grasping like hands. The notebook pulsed, as if breathing in time with his panic. He whispered into the silence, asking what it wanted. Only the creak of the house answered, until a faint breath slipped from between the pages. Words etched themselves in fresh ink. Give memory. Take silence. His hands trembled as he realized it demanded a sacrifice. He tried to shut the notebook, but the cover burned against his palm, branding his skin with an imprint of the tree. The room grew colder, every sound muffled, as though the notebook was swallowing the air itself. Then the whisper came again, clearer this time from both the notebook and the walls. One memory, yours or theirs. His breath caught in his throat. The choice was no longer abstract. The shadows leaned forward, waiting to consume whichever memory he surrendered. His mind flashed with images, his mother's smile, the laughter of a friend, the face of a girl he once loved. Each memory flickered like film reels, fragile and trembling. The notebook's voice deepened. One memory to bind the roots. Choose. The tree mark on his palm throbbed like a second heartbeat. Desperate, he screamed that he would give nothing. The candle extinguished instantly, darkness swallowing the room whole. The shadows roared in silence, their forms distorting into countless faces, some strangers, some his own, all crying out in wordless hunger. Then, in trembling defiance, he pressed his branded palm onto the page. The notebook drank deep, memory or soul, he could not tell. When the void released him, he found himself seated at the desk once more. The notebook lay open, but his reflection in its ink-black page was missing. He touched his temple, but there was no memory of his mother, no echo of the girl he once loved. His mind was a hollow chamber, stripped of warmth. The shadows no longer threatened. They bowed to him, whispering in broken voices. He was no longer prey. He was scribe. On the desk where the notebook had rested, new words burned into the wood. Another will write, another will feed. The man turned, but where a door should have been, there was only endless hallway. At the far end, another desk, another notebook, waiting. He understood then, the book did not end. It only turned its page.